Let's play a guessing game of whether the person in the 16th century Holbein portrait was wearing silk or wool thread for their blackwork embroidery. My name is Lynn, and welcome to my channel. In the 16th century, silk thread was popular for blackwork embroidery. For those above a certain station in life, during King Henry VIII's reign, he passed 4 Acts of Apparel in 1510, 1514, 1515, and 1533. These laws regulated what people were and were not allowed to wear to help define their status within the society hierarchy, or face the consequences of being fined for disobeying the law. These laws continued and were updated through Queen Elizabeth I's reign. As of 1533, no man under the degree of a baron's son or of a knight, unless he had lands or rent fees and annuities for his own use for the term of his life, or in the right of his wife £200, then he shall wear any manner of embroidery with gold, silver, or silk in any part of their apparel. So if a person could not wear silk embroidery, what could they use? Cotton or linen may have been used, but wool was probably the most popular among those who didn't qualify for silk embroidery, because wool was the most popular fabric due to the successful wool trade. So, with Holbein's portraits, with blackwork embroidery in them, let's play a guessing game of if they're wearing silk or wool. Since King Henry VIII was the King of England, this game will apply only to Holbein's sketches and portraits of English subjects. I'll give a few details about the person, wait a moment to see if you can guess the answer, and then I'll post the answer on the screen. Are you ready? Let's go! First up is Anne Cressaker from 1527. We don't have the Moore family portrait as it was lost in a fire in the 18th century. However, we have the family sketch along with her individual sketch. She married John Moore the Younger in 1529. Anne was the only child of Edward Cressaker of Barnborough, Yorkshire, and his wife Jane, who was the daughter of Sir Richard Bass. When her father died in 1512 at the age of 27, Anne, his sole heiress, became a ward of the crown, a wardship which was eventually bought by Sir Thomas More in 1523. Her paternal grandfather was John Cressaker, Lord of Barnborough. What do you think? Wool or silk thread for the embroidery? It's wool. Next up is the double portrait of Sir Thomas Godsolph and his son John from 1528. Sir Thomas was a rich landowner and close friend of Thomas Cromwell. It was through this friendship that Sir Thomas's son, John, was able to start a career at King Henry VIII's court. John became a clerk of the signet and an elected member of Parliament in 1539. Thomas was a knight, but John was not. John is the one wearing the blackwork embroidery. What do you think? Was he allowed to wear silk thread, or was it wool for the embroidery? Wool. This is a sketch of Queen Anne Boleyn from between 1532 and 1536. In 1533, she married King Henry VIII and became his second wife after he divorced his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Anne was the mother of Queen Elizabeth I. She is notoriously known for being the queen for 1,000 days before her husband had her beheaded on erroneous charges. What do you think? Is she wearing wool or silk thread? It had to have been silk because she was queen at the time. This is Catherine, Duchess of Suffolk, from sometime between 1532 and 1543. Her maiden name was Catherine Willoughby. She was the only child of William, 11th Baron Willoughby, and Lady Maria de Salinas, one of the ladies-in-waiting to the Queen Consort, Catherine of Aragon, who was the first wife of Henry VIII, and Catherine was born around 1519. After her father died in 1526, she became ward of Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, for a few years. Originally, it was intended for her to marry Charles's son. However, in 1533, at the age of 14, she was married to Charles Brandon, aged 49. What do you think? Is she wearing wool or silk thread? It would have been silk because she was a duchess. Edward Venus of de Clinton, from between 1532 and 1543. Edward married King Henry VIII's mistress, Bessie Blount, formerly known as Elizabeth Blount, was the mother of Henry Fitzroy. Henry Fitzroy was the only acknowledged illegitimate son of Henry VIII, who later became Duke Richmond and Somerset, before his untimely death at the age of 17 in July of 1536. Edward was born in 1512 to Thomas Venus Clinton, the 8th Baron Clinton of Marstoke. He first started off as a royal ward in 1517 and later became courtier of Henry VIII. In 1550, Edward became the Lord Admiral to King Edward VI. Edward later became the first Earl of Lincoln in 1572. What do you think? Is he wearing wool or silk in this portrait? It would have been silk because in 1532 he was the son of a baron. Next up is Thomas, 2nd Baron Vaux, from 1533. He was born in 1510. In 1523, he became the 2nd Baron Vaux of Harrowden. He was also a poet. In 1533, at Anne Boleyn's coronation, he was created a Knight of the Bath. What do you think? Wool or silk on his embroidery? Silk, because he was a baron at the time of the sketch. Robert Chessman was 48 years old in 1533. He was possibly the chief falconer of King Henry VIII. He was the son of Edward Chessman, who was an attorney. From his dad, he inherited a substantial estate in Kent and Middlesex. His marriage to an alderman's daughter, Alice Dacre, brought him more properties. We don't know if he earned more than £200 from his lands, which would qualify him for wearing silk embroidery according to the Act of Apparel from 1533. What do you think? Wool or silk for his embroidery? My guess is wool. Margaret Roper, from either 1535 or 1536. Margaret was born in 1505 to Sir Thomas More. On July 2, 1521, she married William Roper, an attorney. William was the oldest son of John Roper of Well Hall. Margaret died in 1544. What do you think? Wool or silk for the embroidery? My guess is wool. Even though her father was a knight, her husband at the time was not a knight or of a higher station. Jane Seymour was the daughter of Sir John Seymour of Wolf Hall. On May 30th, 1536, she was married in a private ceremony to King Henry VIII and became his third wife. In 1537, she gave birth to Edward, Henry's only legitimate son, who later became King Edward VI upon the death of Henry VIII. Based on the time when this portrait was painted, Jane was the wife of King Henry VIII and therefore Queen of England. So what do you think, wool or silk? I'm going with silk. Mrs. Jane Small, formerly Mrs. Pemberton, was the daughter of Christopher Pemberton, a North Hampshire gentleman. Based on the red carnation in the miniature portrait, this was probably her betrothal portrait. In 1540, she became the wife of a prosperous London cloth merchant, Nicholas Small. They were neighbors of Hans Holbein the Younger, who painted this miniature portrait. Based on her station in the society hierarchy of England, what do you think? Wool or silk? I would say wool, for the simple idea that she was the wife of a merchant. Elizabeth Lady Audley, from 1538. She was born Elizabeth Grey around 1510 to Thomas Grey, the second Marquess of Dorset. The miniature may have been commissioned in celebration of her marriage in 1538 to Thomas, Baron Audley of Walden, Lord Chancellor, as his second wife. Thomas became Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and Speaker of the House of Commons in 1529. In 1533, he was appointed to Lord Chancellor. On the 29th of November 1538, he was created Baron Audley of Walden and installed as a Knight of the Garter. By being the wife of a baron, what do you think? Wool or silk? I'm going to say silk. Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk, from 1539. He was born in 1473. He was the brother-in-law to King Henry VII and son of Thomas Howard, 2nd Duke of Norfolk. Based on this alone, what do you think? Wool or silk? Silk, definitely. Lady Margaret Butts. She was the daughter of John Bacon. She served as a lady-in-waiting to Princess Mary and belonged to the circle of Queen Catherine Parr, the sixth wife of Henry VIII. Her husband was Sir William Butts, M.D., who was the personal physician to Henry VIII, who knighted him in 1544. William, her husband, was born in 1485. To John Butts, who was an auditor of Crown revenues. Since her husband was not knighted until 1544, and this portrait was made prior to that, what do you think? Wool or silk? My guess is wool. Portrait of Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, from about 1541 to 1543. He was a poet and the son of the 3rd Duke of Norfolk. Remember Thomas Howard from before Lady Margaret? In 1541, he was made a Knight of the Garter. However, just by being a duke's son, what do you think? Wool or silk? Silk, definitely. Thank you for playing this game of wool or silk with me today. If you enjoyed this video, please select thumbs up. If you have questions or comments, please post them below. And please click subscribe and ring the bell to be updated when new videos come out.